Here is a test prep playbook. So here is a way that you can support your students to prepare for the big game, that test at the end of the year, where they're going to take what they have learned all year and really show that they've mastered that material. So the first activity that students can do is a Fast and Curious. This is an edu protocol where students will complete a quizzes, Kahoot, GimKit, one of these activities down here, they're already created for you on some test prep vocabulary. So again, you'll just click the link, you'll start that activity within your classroom. And then once you start it, your students are able to play. There's also resources for all of those different games where you're able to even create your own if you wanted to create your own vocabulary words as well. And then again, you can pick your favorite game that you want to use for that activity. What students will do is they're going to play that game. On Monday, this is prior knowledge. They've never seen the information. So, what they're going to do is they're going to write what percentage they got. So, for example, maybe they got a 20%. I also would make my students do a quick screen capture. So, they're going to click the tool within Cami and they're just going to screen capture their screen and they're going to explain what questions they missed on that activity and just kind of quickly kind of make connections and recap and talk about and kind of teach themselves what they missed. So again, it's a quick reflection for students to remember exactly what they missed. They'll do that every single day. And hopefully by Friday, students will end up with a either 95% or even that 100% score. So again, every day they're completing the same quizzes, Kahoot, whatever activity you want to use, and they are hopefully improving their score. Now, what I like to do is on Wednesday, based on how my students are doing. So, again, on Wednesday, you can do this every day if you have the class time, but especially on Wednesday, have my students take the words that they missed. And on those words that they miss, they will complete some type of vocabulary activity. Here are a few resources that you can choose from. For example, roll the dice. So, students will take all the words that they missed from that game on Wednesday, and they are then going to roll a dice and then they have to do whatever the activity is on Cami. So for example, students might have to act out the definition. So again, they'll grab that camera tool, they will act out that definition for that word. Students might have to draw a picture. They'll grab the drawing tool and explain and illustrate the meaning of the word. So based on how the students do on Wednesday, they take those missed words and they complete an activity. Again, you could do this every single day that week, but really think about what you have for your class time and what you kind of expect from your students. Now we're ready to kind of explore the practice tests. So there's two resources right here. There's an answer key, but then there's also this 7th grade math. So the first step is you want to find your state practice test. I live in Ohio, so I'm going to pick this OST test right here. There's also an example already created in Cami. And with this resource, you're able to see that there are questions being added. There are drag and drop questions as well for your students where they can practice using an online computer to really practice answering these questions. Because a lot of our tests are online. And so if your students have been practicing on paper, this can be a great resource for your students to try. You might have noticed that there was an ELA question, and that was right down here. One thing that I like to show students is if they go over here to the menu, they can do this 2-page view. And then I'm going to get rid of the cover page, and I can actually have the passage and the questions right next to each other, where students are able to really go in and answer those questions just like they would see it on that test. Okay, so that is one tip. Again, that was the hamburger 2-page view. Sometimes you have to remove that cover page for it to pop up side by side. So let's go ahead and let's explore. So again, you saw here just some drag and drops. You saw some questions being answered. And so what we're able to do is with this test, it's a PDF. Okay, there's lots of pages within this test that I don't need. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to download this, or you can save it to your computer. So I'm going to go ahead and just go to my Cami extension, which is up here. And I'm going to use a tool called Split and Merge. When I click split and merge, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab from my Google Doc and I'm going to find that resource. Now it should be in my most recent, but if you saved it, you can kind of search for it where it might be. I'm going to hit select. It's going to load that practice test. You could add multiple resources if you needed to. If your state provides the answer key in the same document, you can remove it with split and merge. So here's my document. I'm now going to hit next. My students don't need this cover page. They don't need this blank page. They might need this formula page. And so here I am just deleting what my students don't need, and then I can start with question number 1. So again, I'm coming in, I'm customizing the way that this looks for my students. And then what I'm able to do is I can go ahead and I can export this, or I can open it right into Kami. Another thing that you might want to do is I might say that this right here is test 1. And then I want to duplicate it. And maybe for test 2, this is going to be for my low students where I provide some additional scaffolds where maybe I have some additional resources that I can fill in between these pages. So to fill them, I just kind of drag and drop. Again, you would need to upload that additional resource, or you could click this plus sign, add from your computer, add from your drive, or you can add from the Kami library. So maybe right here, I've got this hamburger template because I want my students to have that scaffold, and then I can just drag and drop it to where I need it for that additional support. So those are 2 different ways that you can kind of use split and merge. You can just use it to remove pages, maybe remove the answer key, or you can make it so that way you can add scaffolds to support your students' learning for this test, where you're able to provide them hints and resources. So now that I have my test all ready to go, and again, I might delete this last page right here, I can then export this. And again, I can save it in my Drive, OneDrive, or even open it in Kami. I'm going to open it right into Kami. And when I open it into Kami, what I can do is I can provide additional resources for my students. So maybe I want to tell them, hey, good luck with this. I can leave a voice comment rephrasing the directions for them. I can come in and add different resources onto this document to support them before I push this out to my students. Okay, so now that I have this ready to go, what I'm going to do is I'm now going to assign this to my learning management system. So there's a couple different ways that you can do your learning management system. And I'm going to go ahead and show what it would look like when I use Google Classroom. So over here is my teacher's screen, and I'm going to go ahead to my Google Classroom. Again, this works with Canvas, Schoology, and Microsoft Teams. Once I'm in my Google Classroom, I'm going to pop on over to Classwork. And in Classwork, I'm going to create a Kami assignment. I'm going to add that document, and it might be on my drive or it might be on your computer. So go ahead and find that document where you have it created and where you have it located. So again, I'm going to go ahead and download it. That way I can just grab it from my computer. And let's see if it's almost there. There it is, test 1. Open. I'm going to make a copy for every single student. However, you might want to share one copy so that way all of your students are collaborating together. Maybe you want to assign group work where students are working and they're showing the ways that they solve these different problems. I once saw somebody maybe use split and merge, and then you could use the Frere model template. So here I am if I wanted to make this collaborative, plus sign, and then I'm going to go up to that Kami library. And in that Kami library, I can use my Frere model. And with this Frere model, what I've seen people do is they'll put group 1, group 2, group 3, group 4, or student 1, 2, 3, 4. And the students, what they will do is they'll solve each of those problems individually. And then as a group, they'll put their best answer in the middle. So you could insert that template within and you can duplicate it and then move it, duplicate it, move it, and then your students can work together in a collaborative group. So I'm going to go ahead and for this example, I'm going to make a copy for every single student. But if I wanted to do that collaborative idea with that Frere model, I would do students share one copy. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to call this Math OST. And now that I have my math OST in here, I can assign it to multiple classes. I can pick and choose students. I can assign points, add a due date, add a topic, and I can also turn on and off control features. What feature control does is it allows me to decide if I want these features on or off. Now for math, in Ohio, my students do have a read aloud tool. However, if I did not want them to have that tool, I can turn it off. If I did not want my students to have the dictionary, I could turn that tool off and they will not have those tools on their assignment. I'm going to go ahead and leave everything on there and I'm going to hit assign. It's going to then assign this assignment in my learning management system. What's going to happen is my students are going to go to their classroom, and once they're on that assignment, they are then going to go into classwork, and they are then going to wait for that assignment to appear, which it should be pretty soon. Let me refresh and let's see if it's there now. Yep, Math OST. They're then going to click Open with Cami. And when they click Open with Cami, it's going to open up that document that I took through Split and Merge. So there's no directions, there's no answers in this document. And what my students are able to do is now they're able to use the tools within Cami. So they could come over here and use the text box. They could come over here and use the drawing tool. They can highlight important information. Okay, so whatever your students need to do, you're able to see that. Now let's go back to the teacher's screen. So here I am in my Google Classroom, and I'm going to click View Instructions. I'm going to go over to Student Work, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click Class View. With Class View, what you're able to do is you're able to see all of your students working on this assignment individually. So I'm going to zoom out, and I can see student Stephanie over here, where I can go down the list and see my other students working on this assignment. And I can give them individualized, personalized feedback. So I can give them a check. And what happens is automatically that student gets that feedback. They don't have to click turn in, they don't have to submit. They're able to get that feedback automatically. I'm able to see how my students are doing when it comes to using this assessment. So that's one way that you could use this Math OST within your classroom. Now, if we go back to our playbook, you might notice that there's some additional steps on here. So that would be just sending it out, that PDF to your students, maybe using Split and Merge to remove some of those things. But maybe you want to make it a step further, where you want to add Cami questions. And so what you're able to do is I already assigned this out. What I can do is you can either create this before and open it right into Cami and add those questions, or I can go into instructions and click update work. Maybe I want my students to solve the problems before they answer the questions. When I click update work, what's going to happen is it's going to open up the assignment. And on the assignment, I'm able to go in and create those questions. And then I can push out those changes. I could also go in and create scaffolds. Maybe I noticed every single student missed number 3. If that's the case, I can go to update work, make those changes, and then publish those changes for my students to see. So once it loads, you do need to go into your initials up here, go down to settings, and once you're in settings, scroll all the way to the bottom and make sure that it says Cami questions are turned on. So again, you're going to go into your settings. So you go up to your initials, settings, and then just make sure it's turned on. If it's not, you're not going to see this questions pop up. So again, that's one thing that you do have to do ahead of time. And then when it comes to those questions, what I can do is I can go to a multiple choice question that I had. So right here, it says which 2 data sheets, right, show the most overlapped. And my students have to pick A, B, C, or D. I can come in here and I could create a multiple choice, drop down, or short answer. I'm going to do multiple choice. And what my students are going to do is they have to select 2. So I'm just going to put question 1 because the question's on the document. And then I could just put option A, B, C, or D, and then I'm going to hit select answer key. When I select my answer key, instead of single, I want to change this to multiple, and I can choose how many options I want for this answer. I can change the points, and I can also have some other settings that I'm able to change. Once I hit save, I can then publish these changes to my students. And when I click that publish changes, my students get that immediately. So again, maybe I want them to show their work first. And then what I want them to do is answer that question. So once it publishes, my students will be able to see that question, use the select tool, and answer that question. And then once they answer that question, what I'm able to do is I'm able to go over to class view and watch my students respond on how they think that work or that question is going. So again, I'm going to be able to see my students answer their questions, see what misconceptions we have. So that is using the Kami questions. You have multiple choice, drop down, and short answer. So again, if I come down here, I could then have this maybe be a short answer response and so on. And so I could again use those questions. I could use publish changes to really publish and make those connections with my students to really help them. Some additional ideas are listed down here. You could gamify this where your students answer the questions using the Kami document, and you could use class view to kind of keep track of how your students are doing. Based on that, you could have race to the top. This is a fun game where students will answer questions on this document, and then what they do is they race to the top. So they're on teams. If every group gets their answer correct, again, maybe you use that FAIR model example, they roll a dice. Team 2 gets a 3 rolled dice. They have the question correct. They can come on here, and what they're going to do is they're going to grab the drawing tool. They got 2, but then they want to erase from a team. So they get to take their points and decide how they want to use this across the board. And so again, they can come in, add points, erase points based on how they're doing on this game. Students have so much fun that we used to stop when they got to the top. But because they had so much fun, we just kept playing and we just add tally points and then they restart. So you could do that, or you could say, okay, next game, let's see if the same team's going to win or we have a new team that's about to win. The unfair game. This is where students will answer those questions using Kami. And once they answer those questions correctly, again, you can use class view to view. You will then ask them to pick a number. So they answer the questions, they then pick a number. They pick 4. That team has to decide if they're going to keep it or give it away before I reveal the answer. So before I showed you number 4, negative 15, students would need to make the decision. Am I going to keep or give this away? Once students decide, then you reveal the number. So let's play again. So they answer the question correctly. 16 is what they choose. They choose to give it away. That team that they gave it away to has negative 30 points. You click the home button and you keep playing. I usually use the drawing tool to cross off which options have already been chosen so that way they cannot be rechosen. Another game is Gamble or Guarantee. This is where students will again answer questions, and on here they will decide if they want to gamble or guarantee. You'll have a Google slide where you can present this, and behind this is what will show if they get it correct. If the students answer the question correctly, they're going to write gamble or guarantee. If they gamble, they just lost negative 400 points. If they guaranteed it, they just won 1,000. So again, students are able to kind of decide if they want to take their answer and gamble with it, or if they want that guarantee of 100 or 1,000 points. There's also Tic Tac Booyah, where again, students will answer questions on that test. They come over to Tic Tac Booyah, add a mark, and their goal is to get 4 in a row. Other teams are playing, so they're trying to block the other teams. I usually have students use numbers and different colors. And again, they're trying to get 4 in a row, as many as they can. Once they get 4 in a row, they yell Booyah. So just some other ideas is you can update that work to really provide those scaffolds, those videos, those resources. You can create collaborative documents where students are working together. You can turn on or off feature controls. And then you can also use the annotation bank to give feedback. So when you're giving feedback, I'm able to come in here and that check mark that I just created, I can click this little box and save this to my annotation bank. I can come over here to toggle sidebar and go over to my annotation bank, grab these scaffolds, grab these resources for feedback, and all I have to do is drag and drop this video, that resource onto the screen. My students are going to get that resource on their screen immediately to show what they need to do in order to make corrections. So use that annotation bank to help guide your classroom and to guide that feedback. On this last slide right here, you can kind of see that there's multiple select, multi-part, hotspots, graphing, the equation editor, text entry. You can do inline choice, match table grids, short constructed responses, drag and drops, and hot text. So give it a try. Try using Cami for your next test prep with the playbook.